All right, guys. So again, super proud of what Josh is doing, the team that he's built, and just excited to be able to share with you guys what he's done. So without further ado, let's bring to the stage Josh Ferri from Lakeside Decking.
All right, so as you can tell, you know what's in store for you. It's wonder and amazement. So, Lakeside Decking, in partnership with the Academy, presents the journey to hiring and sales success. So today what we're going to talk about is how I hired, trained, and managed basically a salesperson. But I want to go over a little bit more about like what the purpose of this talk is, because it's not necessarily just about like what to do, but also why to do it. So the journey of hiring, training, and selling a salesperson is one of the scariest things I think I've done in the business so far. And I want to offer you a little disclaimer. This presentation is about what worked for us. But if you know anything about the Academy, what works for one person doesn't always work for other people. But what you'll find is that what we talk about is fundamental across the board as far as lessons that we've learned, okay? So let's go over a little bit about who I am and who Lakeside Decking is. So my name is Josh Ferri, and like John, I can be a bottleneck sometimes. I also own Lakeside Decking. A little bit about our history. In 2022, a little bit before I came to Chris, we did $450,000 total throughout the year. That was it. Sales, revenue, everything. In 2023, we did $735,000. We're at sales, revenue, total. That's it. In 2024, we did $2 million. So that was a 172% increase. Now, I know what you're wondering, why am I telling you this? We'll get there. We could have done more. And that's the key lesson here, is that we could have done more. But, everybody, drum roll please. I was too busy doing other things. And isn't that what we're all like really used to is, oh man, I feel like I could have gotten a lot more done today, but I had to deal with this and deal with that. But Josh, how do you know you could have done more, right? That's the key question is like, well, I mean, I could just say I could have done more, but how do we actually know that we could have done more? Well, we'll go over everything that happened while I was also selling, because that's the other thing is during 2022, 2023, and 2024, I was doing all the sales. So here's a few things. I got my guys out of the field. I implemented a whole new production system, trained a project manager, trained a project coordinator, switched to sub crews, onboarded an admin, whole new sales process when we started using that admin, started using OnDeck fully, started using JobTread fully, rebuilt our advertising campaigns, and all of that was from a wood shop. Then we built out an office and a showroom, moved everything to that office and showroom, changed the sales process again to use that office and showroom, and then we hired a salesman. And all of this was while I was also selling. So imagine all of the things that we could have done imagine all the things that I could have done if I was only selling, and that's all I was focused on, right? And that's the thing about salespeople, bringing them on, and why you should bring somebody on, is because they only have to focus on selling. They don't have to worry about production. They don't have to worry about whether the porta potty got there on time. They don't have to worry about any of that stuff. They only have to worry about selling. So imagine if you're doing all these things, because I know a lot of us are, and you're also selling. But can anybody guess what happened while I was doing all that and selling? Anybody? Don't all jump up at once? Anybody? No? I'll just tell you. Client communication and sales opportunities were falling through the cracks left and right. So I had to make a decision. I had to decide, what was I going to do to solve this problem? And this is a big problem. And I think we all know that we all face this problem from time to time. Not only that, I had to consider what was going on in my market. So in my market, this is just a screenshot of just the TimberTech website. So forget all the other decking materials. This is just the TimberTech website. In my zip code, so Long Lake, There are 35 other platinum contractors within a 50-mile radius. So all platinum. So forget bronze, forget gold, then forget the Trex things and the decorators things. I'm sure some of these guys also have those too, but I have a tremendously saturated market, and it's very competitive with other just deck builders, okay? Not even talking about the exteriors guys too, okay? We have a really tough market, and I came to a very quick realization. I could not scale if I was doing everything. So a reality check for, I guess, some of you, most deck business owners wear too many hats, right? Too much time on sales calls. They're spending too much time. Your team has to book time with you. So to give you an example, Allison used to come into my office and say, when in the next couple days can you meet with me? Because we got to go over the marketing campaign, or we got to go over what type of, I don't know, toilet paper we want to use in the office, or anything. They actually had to book time with me because I was so busy going on sales calls, I was literally not there for half the day. And I had a light bulb moment at that point. We were not scaling. We weren't growing. And guess what makes growing easier? Money, right? It does. So imagine what I could have been bringing in if I was doing all the things and another salesperson was doing only sales. So I made a strategic decision, gotta hire a salesperson. Has to happen. Had to rip off that Band-Aid. So now we're gonna talk a little bit about how we hired Bo. If anybody you don't know, this is Bo right here. So what I wanna talk to you guys about is a little bit about how we decided to hire and how we went about hiring. That decision, though, led us to crafting a vision for Bo's role. Because what's important whenever you're hiring a salesperson is that you have to be clear on what you want them to do. And I know that's like, what do you mean? They're going to sell, right? And if you just want them to clock in, clock out, sell decks, cash checks, that's fine. But I would challenge you to think about it a little bit further as what problems am I trying to solve that bringing this person in can help me solve? For us, we wanted to think strategically about what problems we had. So leads were falling through the cracks, constantly behind on proposals, taking calls at night or on the weekends, spending more time selling than leading, or feeling stuck in our current revenue level. So those were all things that Allison and I crafted. Unfortunately, Allison can't be here, but she was very pivotal in this process. These were the 5 key things that we wanted Bo, or whoever we hired at that moment, to help solve in our company. So what were we looking for in a person? And how did we actually go about our hiring process? We know we wanted this person to own the sales role, okay? We developed what we wanted, and what I made sure to implement in our system was that I wanted to hire somebody not for just right now, but to hire somebody for the future as well. Who I was hiring now was going to be our first salesman, and they were going to hopefully eventually become, sales lead or head of sales. So I wanted to find a person that not only could just do the selling, but also could possibly lead a team in the future. And then we went through the normal hiring funnels that we've all kind of that we all have a little bit of experience with. But one thing that I did that I think was crucial was once I weeded through those candidates and I figured out who I wanted to call, I based that on who I wanted to call on who had sales experience at a legitimate place, not like Home Depot or something like that. And then of those people, I called everybody. I hopped on the phone with them before I brought them in, so like a pre-interview interview, I guess. And all I was doing there was just seeing how the conversation flowed. Talk to you a little bit about me, talk a little bit about you. Why do you, what made you apply for this position, stuff like that. I didn't want it to be so much interview as I wanted it to be like, do I like you? Do I even want to bring you in? That type of thing. And then our interview process was we simulated how we wanted the role to look, not through like a role-playing exercise, but essentially it was more confirmation that this person can just have a conversation, can talk, is a real person, okay? Because a lot of the times our clients, they just want to talk to a real person. They don't want to talk to somebody who's just talking at them about screws and hardware and stuff like that. We wanted to make sure that it wasn't me pulling, answers out of you by asking questions that you already don't know the answers to and whatnot. So what stood out about Bo was that not only was he a great culture fit, and that's what we were looking for, is culture fit, but he had a strong drive to learn. He showed genuine enthusiasm, and he showed genuine enthusiasm for the role. So I'm going to actually have Bo come up and talk a little bit about not only what attracted him to Lakeside Decking, but how you guys can make your companies more attractive to salesmen. Because that was something that was holding me up for the longest time, was why would anybody want to work for me? Like, I don't have my shit together. And the key point is you don't really have to have all your shit together. So, Bo?
All right. Emphasis on that. Excuse me, guys, I'm fighting through some brain fog yet, but probably going to be using my notes a little bit here. But main thing, so I came in, I found the Lakeside role through ZipRecruiter, and I think it was just a form that you filled out, and then Josh called me, had a conversation, brought me in, sat down with him and Allison. But the things that attracted me specifically to Lakeside was, first of all, the opportunity to grow. So Josh had made it pretty clear that the type of salesperson that he was looking for, or what the role would entail, not only just taking over the sales aspect of his company, but also helping redefine their process and lead management, CRM, and things that I had plenty of experience with. That I like numbers, I like tracking, I like growth. So that was a huge advantage point there. And then cultural fit. So I've been in a company before where you just have a bad manager or bad colleague, and it just ruins the experience for everybody. It makes it hard to work there. They made it clear. I think they had brought up the previous salesperson.
We'll get into that.
Yeah, and that they were just looking for somebody that fits their team and their culture fit. And it showed that they actually cared about the dynamics. And then attractive pay scale. I have done 100% commission-based roles before. This one was appealing, but the growth and I guess, yeah,
Ownership role.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then last was that Josh specifically was just not only eager to grow his business, but like just build a solid team, which I really appreciated. And then put together a kind of
notes about how to be
another list of what to look for, specifically if you're interviewing other sales candidates.
And how to make essentially how to make your team and your company and your culture more attractive to salespeople.
Yeah, so just a quick recap, it's the professional growth again. I think a lot of salespeople, or at least the good ones that you want to include in your team that you should be looking for, is probably someone that's looking to influence or contribute to the team and growth, and not afraid to maybe change things. I don't know, most people probably know that I challenge Josh quite a bit, but it's all for the benefit of our company. And I think part of the reason that we're finding so much success is because we do kind of collaborate pretty efficiently. Not that we butt heads or anything, but no, it's all in the name of growth. Second thing is just financial. Strong earning structure is obviously appealing to most salespeople, and then benefits or perks. Company car that was supposed to be 90 days in.
We're getting one. It's fine.
Right.
I didn't say I had my shit together. I said I was getting it together.
Now on day 119, so.
Okay, all right. Who's counting?
And then cultural fit. I think this is huge for salespeople. Like I think it's important to bring up in the interview process, just because I've worked with salespeople before that are just hard people to work with, or maybe too snaky, and we just don't want that with our customers that we're that we're putting them in front of. you want our customers to actually trust our salespeople, to know what they're talking about at a certain level, but also that they're not just bullshitting. And then collaborative team and supportive leadership, I think, is huge. We'll get into that a little bit later too. And then company position. So emphasizing your brand strength or industry position, product offerings, and then sales tools is a huge one. So Josh had kind of showed during the interview our on-deck CRM, and there's a couple names of customers that he was, one that we sold, or Josh sold, and a couple others that I noticed that were previous clients of mine in my previous job. And so that was kind of an appealing factor too, is like, well, kind of the same client base in West Metro, and I'm kind of used to this area. So noticing those in our CRM and then getting familiar with, the way they're managing leads and whatnot. Lead generation tools and data analytics, all we reviewed during the interview, which is, I could see there was a lot of work to be done, but it was the appealing factor that I could, add some huge value.
But we were also clear about all that work that we wanted to do. So when we had Bo in the room with us and we were talking to him, we told him, listen, this is something we want to implement. We haven't implemented it yet. Showing him, like, here's the things you're going to be working on with us, I think also was attractive because it gave you a clear path of growth. But then, yeah, thank you. I appreciate that. The lessons we learned when we were hiring, what worked and what didn't work. So if you didn't hear, we did hire one other salesperson before Bo. He lasted 1 week because we didn't do the things that we learned. We didn't prioritize cultural fit over technical skills, which was key. We didn't involve the team in the hiring decision. And we didn't, because that second part is key. Salespeople talk to everybody in the company. They talk to production, they talk to sales, they talk to management, they talk to finances, they talk to everybody because especially in our industry, it's a collaborative effort to get these projects off the ground. And then we were very clear about what we did and didn't have and what our goals were. So specifically, like, what we didn't have and what we wanted and what we needed from Bo, or what we were hoping from. And with Alan, nice guy, but we didn't do any of those things. And I feel like we didn't really prep him for our role, for his role. So don't rush just to fill the gap. Don't do that. Take your time. What?
One thing to point out, though, that I love is that even though they didn't prioritize culture when they hired Alan, their culture weeded Alan out in 1 week. Right? Like, that's a key point, I think. Like Alan left on his own because the culture inside of Lakeside was such that, not to say the temperature was too high for this guy, but like he didn't fit in. So I think it's kind of important to point out.
Yeah.
Like, don't glaze over that. Like, they didn't hire somebody with that cultural thing in mind, but that had such a strong culture that it, like,
We didn't hire based on core values. So that was something we definitely learned. But the closer code. So I want to talk to you guys a little bit about training. Like, how do you actually, like, train a salesperson to sell? So this is a behind the scenes look at how we took Bo from, quote unquote, rookie deck sales. He was not a rookie salesman. He was a rookie deck salesman to a closer. So here are 4 things we emphasize when training Bo. Company knowledge. So how do we act as a company, and our processes and lack thereof, as Bo knows, lack thereof. Product knowledge. So actual technical skill, making sure that they do know a little bit about decking. And then letting them go, letting them do what they need to do and what they're good at. So as Nick Stevens likes to say, let Bo cook. Let Bo be Bo, okay? But this process of training is not complete. It is an ongoing process. Regularly, Bo will come back from a consult and be like, hey, I want to do this, or the client really wants that. And I will go through the technical knowledge of why we can or cannot, or what he should look for, or what he should make sure to talk about with them at their estimate. It is not a one-stop shop. It is an ongoing process, especially as business owners. We go to Deck Expo, we go to IBS, we learn about new products. Well, your salesman might not know about those products. You might have a fundamental understanding of how certain footings work or whatever, but they might not. So ongoing training is super critical. And then we just let Bo be Bo. The Bo stash. So some real world stuff. What do we do? So the first 90 days of onboarding Bo, here are the 3 things we did. Shadowing. Bo spent as much time with me as he could. He came to all meetings. He participated in all Lakeside decking workflow and culture. Hands-on insight. He observed how we all interact with clients, handle challenges, stuff like that. And then real-time feedback. So shadowing sessions, coming with me to consults, this was key. We would get back in the car, and I would say, how did you think that went? How would you have handled this differently? What did you think about when Mrs. Smith asked me about the paint or something? Giving and receiving immediate feedback was something I learned from Nick and was something that was crucial to making sure Bo was using a deck selling mindset when he was reviewing how our consults went. And this one is critical, and it's the one we all hate, role playing. We did a lot of role playing. We did role playing with Allison. We did role playing with me. I don't know if Carlos participated in the role playing, maybe he did. But simulating and conducting role playing exercises to help Bo gain that confidence in selling decks was crucial. So what can be really daunting for salespeople who don't have technical knowledge or aren't from the industry is, I don't feel confident to sell a product that I don't know that much about. And role playing really helps because you can show them that you don't need, engineering level technical knowledge to sell a deck. You need to know how clients think. And that is where Bo has had a lot of success. He goes into almost all of his consults with the mindset of, what does my client want? I'm thinking from a client's point of view. There has been many times where Bo has done what he does best and challenged me by saying, like, why? That doesn't make sense because just from a homeowner's perspective, I don't see why we can't do that. And then it gives me an opportunity to be like, well, from a builder's perspective, this is why we can't do that, or this is why we can do that, and this is how you should explain to them why and how it makes sense to a homeowner versus just, talking to another deck builder. Technical knowledge. So when we stick to our schedule, have regular technical knowledge sessions where Bo will go throughout his week and I will go throughout my week, and we'll write down notes about, like, oh, we should talk to Bo or whoever about, these new helicals that we're using, or we should talk to Bo about, I'm just constantly writing notes about, like, things, ooh, I really want to start selling more steel framing. Let's make sure that in our next technical session, I'm talking to Bo about how steel framing works and stuff like that. So product workshops were key, where we would talk about very specific line items in what we were trying to sell so that he understood how to go to the client and talk to them about that. But then the one other key thing was resource guides. So giving them access to your resources, to how you learned, how you know about the products, is very crucial. So specifically, Bo, I gave him access to the pergola people. I gave him, the contact info for the steel framing people. And we gave him all of the brochures and everything that we could find and stuff like that. And Bo did a lot of self-educating based on how he learns. One thing he did, for instance, was one of our vendors is literally right down the street from us. He went and spent a couple hours with them and just learned about all the products that they offer and he started thinking about how we could fit those into our decks and stuff like that. So I hope all that makes sense, but I'm going to come clean. That all sounds like it all went very, very well. But I want to talk about what we actually did, okay? And don't get me wrong, what we just talked about are things we actually did. We did technical sessions, we did role playing, we did shadowing, we did feedback. And Chris might not like that I'm about to say this, but we took the sales playbook and threw it out the window about, 2 weeks in. Bo and I operate in a very similar fashion, that we're not super structured that way. We quickly started to treat the sales training process through real world experience. And that's where we started having the most success. Okay? So if I knew that a consult was coming up that had to do about pergolas and Bo hasn't, learned about pergolas yet, made sure Bo was there and made sure to talk to him about pergolas before it happened. Rather than, for instance, having in my sales training pergolas on week 2 or something, but we don't have any consults booked up for pergolas, I can use that time for something more, more beneficial to what's actually happening. The sales playbook is awesome because it makes sure that you do cover everything. But what we did was we just switched the order a little bit. So I started to focus on real world product knowledge, real world sales techniques, and real world pipeline building. And then what I did was I really allowed Bo to affect change within our processes. And that, I think, as Bo was about to tell you guys a little bit, actually provided some better training for him. So do you want to come up and tell them about like things you actually did to affect change?
Yeah. So well, and Josh originally had this labeled what went wrong.
Yeah.
And so but instead of what went wrong, I think it's what we're learning is that the process matters more than the product. So obviously I think one of the things that a lot of you all might be thinking about is like, why hire somebody that's not from the industry?
And tell them what you sold before this, though.
Yeah, so I worked 10 years for a company called Tom James, and they do high-end, custom-made business attire. I planned on being there for 1 year, and ended up being there for 10. So I did really well, but I hired and managed a team, and there's no brick and mortar or anything, but it was working with our, the top 10% in the Twin Cities and going to their home or office, and but wasn't COVID proof. So as soon as COVID hit, that kind of all went to shit. And then I got into the tech space, and I was working from home, sitting at my desk, and losing my damn mind because I am not someone that needs to be sitting in an office, or I just need to be out and moving, seeing clients face to face. But used to working with that high level clientele that we're working with, and relatability is kind of like one of my strengths, I guess. So, which is why I went into or came into Lakeside. But the product knowledge was a learning curve, but rediscovered that the process of how and Josh had that process outlined. There's just some things that I kind of suggested to him, like follow-ups and assumptive closes, and we'd get into the car after a lot of our consults, and I'd ask him, like, why didn't we pre-book this one? And he's like, what's pre-booking? So I think salespeople, like a majority of our customers, they don't need to know all the minute details of how this deck is going to be built. A lot of the consults I was on, I look at the customer, and Josh would be like going super technical and would totally just show that he was a credible source, right? But it went way over their head, and they're just like, okay, clearly you know what you're talking about, but I have no idea what you just said. So to me, I guess, deck sales is more about getting people to trust you because you are more reliable, transparent, honest, and communicative, and less about your detailed technical knowledge. And then our dialogue, our customers know that they are working with more than just me as their sales guy. So I tell them right away, this is how our process works. I'm here to get to know you, your vision, and what you want your dream deck to look like, and take some pictures, measurements, and then I'm going to go back to my team and put together an estimate for you. And so they know that we're collaborating and working together.
Yeah. And then we talked a little bit about like real world stuff. So Bo is going to tell you a little bit about his first solo experience, which again, when you're training salespeople, you got to pivot a little bit. Like my son got sick, I couldn't make it to this consult. We had already rescheduled with them, and Bo was basically like, "Fuck it, let's go. I'll do it solo." And he went, and tell him about how it went.
Oh my gosh. So it was a new development. The address is not in Google yet, but we had an address in Google, and that's the one I went to. And it was ironically about 20, 25 minutes away from the actual place I was supposed to be at. So called the guy, let him know, and he's like, yeah, that's fine. I roll up, and his house isn't even finished yet, so he was sitting in his car outside the unpaved driveway and everything, and there's like dirt everywhere and other houses going up, and I'm like, this is great. So I showed up frazzled, and gave as best of a presentation as I could, and
But the key point is that he's still in our pipeline,
Yeah.
and you're still working with him on a deck.
yeah,
But
Still.
talk to them a little bit about what we have up here. Like, these are just examples of things Bo had direct hands on, where he made things work for himself. So to give you an example, like before we'd go, they'd be getting a text saying, "Hey, we're on our way," or drip campaigns, text expanders, client recap visits, and then selling planning and design fees, and eventually selling that first deck. So, yeah.
Yeah, so this is actually the process that I used for my first sale that went through. But I think it's key to mention that during the first week of ride-alongs, Josh had mentioned this term of white glove service.
Mhm.
And it really stuck out to me, and I asked him, like, well, what does that mean? He's like, well, he kind of gave a definition. I was like, that's awesome. And in my head, that doesn't sound like anything like a regular contractor. And I think we need to use that. And how are we portraying that to our customers? He's like, we're not. I'm like, okay. So that gave me an opportunity to kind of really jump in and say, okay, what does that look like to me? And then we brought it back to the office, asked everybody in our team to define what that would look like. We came up with a list of
Actionable items.
yeah, the description words that we kind of all related to, and then we put it into emotion. And it's an ongoing process that we're still working on and redefining, but we've made leaps and bounds. And I think
Yeah.
just the follow-up and lead management that we're able to provide now, we're getting verbal. Our customers that we're meeting with are like, you guys are great. This process is awesome. We really appreciate like everything you've provided, and we want to work with you.
Yeah. And the reason we also have this up here is because Bo is doing multiple things with each client that I simply didn't have time to do. Yeah. Walk them.
Yeah, so we have some automation set up to where once the consult is booked, they'll get email reminders, an email invite, and then a text reminder 24 hours beforehand and an hour before, and then
Drip campaigns.
What?
Drip campaigns.
Drip campaigns as well. So if the if the consult or even the estimate stage is booked out more than 5 days, they get an email in between that, just with different enhancement ideas or things to look for, or
Mm-hmm.
yep,
Yeah.
or like they'll have an initial invite to the initial consult email. They'll get info about me and our company, as well as like our projects, and then the ways to enhance your deck they'll get before meeting with them.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then I use it's a app called Text Expander. It's totally worth it, but you can put together snippets essentially. On Deck has something similar. I haven't really figured out how to incorporate it, and I'm more familiar with Text Expander, but essentially you create forms just like these. So I have it all built out, kind of a generic form, and then you click a couple buttons and it pops up a form just to fill out. And so I can fill out what we're doing on each project. Obviously we're not sending out numbers for estimates or anything. We want to meet with people. So the one in the middle I think is after our styling curation. So they have the numbers. Those are the renderings. They've paid the P&D. So then that's where I feel comfortable sharing some numbers because we're actually in the decision stage.
Yeah.
But it's just recaps and getting them, keeping them in our pipeline. So every consult that I was on, we'd ask, "Are you meeting with other contractors?" Well, yeah, but we haven't heard back from one for 2 weeks, or we got to get back in touch. It was always on the customer's shoulders. And
Yeah.
to me, sales, like, I want to be in control of that whole process. Like, I'm not letting go of you. It's not your choice when you're following up with me. And so
You're
like
always
to
setting
say-
new appointments. Yeah.
yeah, I'd like to say I'm assumptive, pleasantly persistent, if you will. But if they give us a few days to talk about it, great. What does Friday look like at 11 o'clock? Let's get a call scheduled for 15 minutes just to touch
Yeah.
base. I can answer any questions or anything, and that way you don't have to worry about trying to fit me in your schedule. It's already on there.
But again, like the purpose of that is like these are all things that a salesman can be doing and building out and working on that they have experience with. Like that just translates. Doesn't matter what you're selling. Like salespeople do, similar things that you just like. You don't want to be focusing your time on drip campaigns. You don't want to be focusing your time on text expanders and stuff like that. But not only that, like to bring you into the next portion. This is a deck that Bo sold, okay? And to give you an idea, like I know what I would have done if I was there. I would have probably just sold the deck part because, truth be told, I was so burnt out on sales and stuff like that, and running the company that I was really just trying to get like the baseline through the door with people. But Bo having that dedicated time to talk with them and talk them through different processes and get the quotes and whatnot. Not that it takes a tremendous amount of time, but it's obviously time that we don't have as business owners. So he was able to take this deck from a $76,000 deck that we quoted out for just the deck to a $167,000 deck with add-ons and other things that he had time to go over with the client, that he had time to get samples, and he had time to run quotes through other contractors and stuff like that. And that's kind of that key takeaway is that Bo, and I'll let you expand on this, looks at it from the client's point of view of like, well, what do they not know is even available to them?
Yeah, so one of the things I think that we may overlook is the accessibility, usability, design from a customer's perspective. So sales is an emotional psychology and science, right? And so taking it beyond the deck and creating these 3D renderings and really emphasizing this is what we provide in our planning design agreement, and this is where we can get the full scope of your project down to the last screw. But more importantly, I can show you how to use your deck. Like you told me that you really enjoy evenings out and just lounging by your fire pit. Well, it was way out in the grassy area, or I think they had like a burning pit or something.
Mm-hmm.
And then I mentioned the pergola, and I was like, this is great because they're really popular in Minnesota. They withstand our snow loads, but you can have retractable screens so the bugs aren't getting to you. And they're like, oh, that'd be awesome. I was like, this would be a great dining area. And they originally had like a hot tub platform or something that caved through, but it was essentially just creating a vision or helping them expand their vision. And then I guess when we're doing our no, the brain fart.
Estimates.
Yeah, the estimates. When we're doing estimates, I started implementing or asked Josh, I was like, we should put like dining tables and seating out there because like a lot of homeowners, I'm meeting like their wife is involved. I'm like, imagine, you guys have 2 kids right now. Imagine their friends over, or are you guys planning on growing your family, or what is that going to look like, and how do you envision using your space with your kids and your family as you grow, or your friends? And they're like, that's right. And so this deck was the same rough size of their old one. The husband, Jack, he's like, I don't mind like shortening it up a bit. I don't think we use the whole space. And I had Michelle essentially, she's like, you know what, I do want a dining space, and I think we can utilize the whole thing. Like, let's keep it the same size, and then, it was,
Yeah.
yeah.
But Bo had time to run them through all these things, and thank you, I appreciate that. But let's talk about going from there, the hard lessons with upselling and. And that was his first sale, biggest in the company. Mm-mm.
For like
Monetary
he's
wise,
got
yeah.
he's got one in
Well,
the
they
books.
haven't sold yet, and we're not counting it. So the hard lessons. Thank you, Bo. Where I went wrong as a training person, as a hiring manager, whatever you want to say. This is an actual text I received from Bo. I'll read it out loud to you guys. I need help, Josh. I feel like I've been bringing on these projects, but getting told we can't do them for whatever reason because it's out of our skill set. We've never done it. We don't actually provide it, even if it's in the product brochures. We leave them with, or if we can do it, it's up the ass expensive, and we're way more than our competitors. So what I realized, what's that?
This is probably a month and a half ago.
Yeah. So what I realized is that you cannot, as you know, as much as all we're doing, and I'm talking about how you're getting things off your plate. As much as I realized all that, I also had to come to terms with the fact that I was taking my foot off the pulse a little too much, and that led to his second text after that. Nick's gonna love this one. And when Nick told you to let him cook, it didn't mean leave the kitchen. And that was something that I really screwed up on. Was I was so eager to get out. Talk about challenging. Like this guy is like, and this was also at like 9 o'clock at night when I was like sitting there just trying to watch like fucking Star Wars. But I was so eager to get out of sales that I did leave the kitchen. Okay. And my response to him was, and I'll read you my response. Instead of what I should have been saying to him was, here are 1,000 products on how to build a deck. Each one of them has their pros and cons, and I'm going to help you learn them. Instead, I was like, no, we can't do that. No, I don't want to do that. No, I'm not. We're not curving boards. No. Composite decking sucks. I'm not. Whatever. Only PVC. And I texted him. I said, right, you are right. I need to change my mindset. Part of me is scared because I don't have control over these projects, but that's part of building a team, giving up control and trusting your team. And that was something I really had to come to terms with Bo. So the lesson to take away here is essentially don't forget that you are leading that team and that you do have to have your pulse on those things so they don't feel like you're literally like, all right, go cook, good luck. And then they're like the baby who's been kicked out of the nest and whatnot. So do you have anything you want to add to that? No?
Yeah,
Good.
I think like I think there there's always going to be mistakes when you're learning and whatnot. I think the part that the structured part we kind of threw out the door because we were sharing an office, but I think we needed a little. At this point, I was needing structure because it felt like he just kind of backed off too much, and I wasn't getting explanations for things. Like one of the examples was a composite railing. I had somebody like, we really want this style. It's what we have, and we just want to replace it. And I come back, I'm like, hey, I need some composite, and Josh is like, no, we don't do that. I'm like, it's in our brochures everywhere. Like, what do you mean? And so he was so busy that he was just giving me answers without answering my questions. And so having scheduled technical one-on-ones is what we came up with, like when we adhere to them, but like actually sitting down and be like, all right, this is what we need to review, and I need an explanation so I can adequately relay that to a customer on why we don't do that. So
yeah. The next thing we're going to talk about is a little bit about like, okay, now we're managing a sales team, right? So everybody always talks about this. You hire somebody to take off one of those hats, but then what you've done is you've just put on another management hat because now you got to manage that person, right? So how do we manage a sales team? And really, there's not much to it. There's not like a whole lot of slides here, but really the way I've managed to manage Bo is transparent goals. So setting clear goals together, doing things like this, and doing things like this back at home, where we can establish specific targets, timelines, and goals, ensuring that all expectations reflect, your values and your core values. So keeping that culture fit alive, and then frequent check-ins. So what Bo and I have started to do is really like develop our love for tracking numbers and going over those numbers and going over those things at weekly sales meetings. So these are a few things that we do like to actual manage, but then the results after all of what we've talked about, the highs, the lows, they speak for themselves. So Bo, in his first 4 months with us, sold 8 P&Ds worth basically $500,000 with an average of close to $70,000 per deck. He sold the largest deck in company history, took it from 67,000 or 76,000 to 167,000. Yeah. Okay. So what I mean by that, so Bo basically has 2 things to sell. He has the planning and design phase to sell. That's where we design the deck from scratch, every board, every bolt, everything. And then we do a 3D rendering. We do a styling curation meeting, so we figure out our materials at our showroom, stuff like that. We really bring that white glove service to our clients that they are not getting from other people. And Bo managed to sell 8 of those in literally the span of like 2 weeks, because everything that we talked about previously in this presentation really started to click with Bo, and he really basically started to cook. And I hope that answered your question, but essentially, like I said, we have our numbers are a little off, but because we have like 101% close rate, but that doesn't necessarily make sense. Yeah, I would say it's closer to 90 now. So that's the other thing about bringing in a salesperson. They can go on more sales calls. So you may see certain things drop, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Okay. So one thing I noticed is that when Bo first started, our close ratio of planning and design to sales was like 101% or something like that. And since he's been with us, that number dropped to a more reasonable, like between 90 and 100%, because he is going on more things. He is talking to more people. He's able to do more things as a dedicated salesperson. Like I said, he was able to sell the largest project in our company history. But again, that was specific to his ability to really walk our clients through that white glove service and have nothing else to do on his plate but do that for all the people he's working with. And then in his current pipeline, he's got $1 million+ in business that he can just focus on and go get. No, this is at.
Yeah, this is estimating. And
this is his estimating. Yeah. And you have a meeting with somebody tomorrow. He's about to close like several of them. So you can sit down here, you can stay up here, whatever you want. In closing, so I'm about to throw Grant under the bus. I'm using him as an example. So Grant yesterday said we have 24 leads that the appointment has been run, but no estimate is given. So that kind of like culminates my whole talk here, which is that the purpose of bringing on a salesman is not just to sell decks. It is to do all of the things that you don't have time to do as a salesperson, or as an owner of a company. So that if you're taking anything away from this, it is that they will not only be selling decks, they will be expanding your sales culture and your sales basically sphere through what they're able to contribute and what they actually have time for. So again, if you learned anything, you learned a little bit about why we hire salespeople, how we hire salespeople, how we train them, and how we manage them. And that's really it. Now the floor is kind of open for questions and praise. Yeah.
Estimating too, or just the sales?
That is a very good question. So within the last 2 weeks, we had a bit of a shakeup. One thing, that's a very good question. So I want to point out something. So Bruce asked if Bo is doing the estimating as well as all the sales presentations and other things like that. So me and Bo were on a therapy session with Chris one day, and Chris asked us who was doing the estimating and the takeoffs and whatnot, and Bo was doing the estimating, and Carlos was doing all of our takeoffs and all of our designs and all of our plans and everything else, and Carlos was also project managing. And Chris pointed out, he was like, you're gonna have a real problem come busy time, because if Bo is selling 8 P&Ds in your slow time, imagine what's gonna happen and he sold all those in 2 weeks, imagine what's gonna happen during your busy time. There's no way Carlos can project manage and do all those things. So yes, he was doing the estimating, and that was a real, obviously technical hurdle to overcome. Is like, how do you train somebody to estimate? And a light bulb moment happened with Chris where I was like, wait, it makes a lot more sense to have somebody who knows everything about deck building, everything about all of our products, and everything about all of our designs and plan making to do all of our estimates as well. He's going to be a lot more accurate with it because he knows, oh, can't forget about this because on the Johnson project, we fucked it up. So, so we actually switched out a little bit, and Carlos is now our full-time, he likes to call it design wizard. The title of his actual position is design and estimation specialist. So he does, Bo and him have set up a whole new routine. Bo will come back from his consult. He'll meet with Carlos for 10 to 15 minutes, go over the project details. Carlos will build out an estimate for him. Bo will go and present that estimate. So that's been working out very, very well, although we obviously only have like 2 weeks of data, but I think it's going to work out very, very well. Yeah. But also, if you didn't have that opportunity, we found that having all the systems in place, like job tread estimation, stuff like that, did make it so that Bo could, at least estimate a deck, and then I would audit it or whatnot. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes.
For the on-deck templates that you send after each step of the way, did you create those, or did you guys?
Allison helps.
Yeah, Allison did. But
Yeah.
one thing that we did do was Bo and Allison and I locked ourselves in a room and mapped out our entire process. The moment a client calls, all the way to when they finish.
For 5.5 hours.
5.5 hours. I really should pull it up, but it is a great, like, if this then that situation of everything that could possibly happen. And what that allowed Allison to do was a roadmap, and we highlighted basically the ones we do have and the ones we don't have. And that gave her the ability to be like, well, now I know what I'm working on next. And even like when we want them to trigger and when we want them to be sent out and stuff like that, and what would trigger that. But if it's 5 to 10 days, then we'll have 2 more emails, or whatever that may be. I can share that with you afterwards, but yeah. Any other questions?
Josh, this is the praise moment. I want to give you some praise, man, because as a business owner, I think sometimes we get kind of wrapped around the axle about things have to be perfect before we bring someone on. And you've said it multiple times in your presentation that the goal is to have your shit together, but that doesn't mean that you have that day one. And finding Bo and bringing him on and being transparent about that, I think is really key. And so I applaud you for that.
Allison said something interesting to me when I said, I feel like I don't have all my shit together and it's throwing Bo through a loop. She said, you just have to have your shit. Doesn't have to have it together. So, we had shit. We just needed to put it together. So, hold on. Go ahead. Targeting the right buyers as far as like clients? So that's more of a marketing thing, but the answer is getting very, very clear about who our ideal client is. And that's something we did with Chris and Amy a while back, is figure out our psychographic, our demographic, our geographic, who we want as clients, who is that ideal client, and going after them. One thing that made it a lot better was focusing our ads on things people were actually looking for rather than just a deck. So one example would be you're at your friend's house, you're on their deck, you see that they have this beautiful cable railing, and you're like, I like that. That's really nice. I want that on my deck. So what most people are not going and typing deck builder near me. They're typing in cable railing. Okay? So we have targeted ads, and not only targeted ads, but targeted landing pages that are specific to product rather than we build decks. Because what that allows us to do is somebody calls us about cable railing, but Bo having the amount of time that he needs, or Bo having all that time on his hands, I don't mean to make it sound like Bo is not doing anything, so he has a lot of time on his hands. What I mean to make it sound like is Bo, being a dedicated salesperson, has time for sales-oriented things, can then sell them, can then basically do this. They come in for cable railing and they get this, that type of thing. So Yes, yeah. So most people might not know what their deck wants to look like. They might not know what shape or size or whatever. They just know what they want on it, and they know what they saw at their friend's house. So targeting ads around what people actually like emotionally want has been very, very beneficial. Yeah. You have a
Yeah,
question?
one of the sales tools that we use that I don't think we touched on is using Plod.
Oh, yeah.
And so
Yes.
that was a huge part of our sales training. We recorded all the calls that Josh and I were on together, and then I still use that so I can take it back and share it with either Carlos or Josh. But the other thing and key factor to that, like we wrote one of our strengths down as tech. I think we're really good at that because what we did, or I did, is took those Plod consult, all the dialogue from that, and then created an entire sales script. So we didn't have a sales, like a consult script before. And a lot of people shy away from that because they don't want it to sound too robotic. But if you learn kind of and how to make it your own, I think it's super beneficial for most salespeople. But Josh had it all in his head and was relaying it and knew, based off his knowledge. And it was super repetitive and easy, but I was having a hard time learning it as quick as I wanted to. So created a full sales consult dialogue and then another estimation dialogue and just a general thing because each one is going to be a little bit different. But
Yeah.
second thing is I did want to applaud Josh here too because I think a lot of business owners might be a little bit hard-headed initially in saying, as you mentioned earlier, like this is how I do it and this is how I want it done and whatnot. But Josh has been really fun and easy to work with just because I think we're on the same page and collaborate. But he's open-minded to a lot of the ideas I bring in, which is, I think, just making us better.
Yeah. Any other questions?
Tell them what Plod is.
So Plod is, we've gone over it a few times at a few different legacy events. Plod is, I don't have mine on me, but it's a listening device. It's a recording device, but it's ChatGPT and so essentially what it does is, obviously it records the whole conversation, but it creates a transcript. It creates action items. It creates bullet points. Basically, it does everything so that you can just focus on what you need to focus on and let the note-taking be done for you. And you can create templates, you can do all these things. But right, but that was also super, super helpful when, for instance, Bo started going on his appointments by himself, but wasn't necessarily fully trained up and fully, like, on his own. He was able to send me those plots, I'd listen to them, I'd give him constructive feedback, I'd give him, next time maybe don't say this, or say this, or give him feedback on, I really liked how you phrased this, I should have been saying that the whole time, stuff like that. Yeah, well, so basically as long as you share a Plod account, doesn't matter how many, Plod doesn't have like a limited number of devices. So like we have 4 Plod devices between, like with the company, the watch one, the phone one and stuff like that, and they all upload to the same account. So in Minnesota, other states are different. In Minnesota, I don't technically have to. As long as one person knows that it's being recorded, even if that's the person who's recording, it's fine. What I did before I brought on Bo and I was doing the sales was I actually used it as a sales technique. I told them, hey, I just wanted to let you know I'm recording this device. I'm a really one-track mind type of person. If I'm writing down, that means I'm not listening. So, I'm going to let this do the writing, and me and you're just going to talk. And people were like, great, love it. Yeah, and and I'd get the occasional customer who'd be like, I really don't want to be recorded, and I'd be like, okay. So. Yeah, there's been a few times where hey, did you get that Plod? Yeah, I didn't turn it on. So, it happens, whatever. But oh yeah, it's a library. Yeah.
More than 100 sales meetings, and it will compile all of it to create a training plan based off how I felt, and it'll help.
Yeah.
So that's what I'm doing with my clients.
So here's another tool I really want to point out that I don't know why I didn't put it in my presentation was I took Chris's idea and I created our own sales training coach on ChatGPT, which I'm not sure, I'm pretty sure you still use for like creating your dialogues and whatnot. But one thing that is very cool about what you can do here is you can edit that GBT and you can upload your applauds. You can upload your actual dialogue sequences and transcripts with those clients. So every couple of weeks we'll go in, we'll add more in there, and it will just continuously learn more about how you sell and what your process is as a company, so that when you go in and you say, could you help me do some role playing, the ChatGPT is used to how you do it. It's used to how the products that you sell and the products that you talk about. So if you're not using any AI tools, at least do this one. It's not that hard because you're effectively feeding it information that you're just already creating by virtue of talking. So like total investment, I think is like $150 for Applaud or $100, I don't even know, and like $20 for ChatGPT. But then you have something that you can basically say, listen, as a business owner, I gotta go deal with all these things. Here's a list of things I'd like you to learn about, to your salesperson. Railing, decking, difference between PVC and composite. You sit them down in front of ChatGPT and you say, ask it what the difference between composite and PVC is and how to sell both. And it creates a whole program for you, which is really awesome. I don't know how much Bo actually used it, but not to throw him under the bus, I'm just saying, like, I don't actually have real world stuff. Yeah, what's up? Applaud, P-L-A-U-D, like applaud, like applaud, yeah. It does record the audio, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I don't. So you do have to upload them to the Plod. You do have to like log it. It won't just automatically. It stores it on the device, then you log on, and then you upload them. But I mean, this is where you can download them, listen to them, learn from them, all that stuff, and figure out what that talk was about, and have it do that translating and stuff like that. But yeah, that's where you can actually. I can hear his cadence. I can hear. Your delivery there was a little dry. You said a lot of ums. Whatever. You don't want to actually like go through it with them. It's really, really helpful. Oh yeah. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Any other questions about hiring salespeople or how sales works and stuff? It's a good question. How much entering into job tread do you do now? Would you say?
Well, we're kind of again changing the process a little bit. I was doing all our estimates into job tread, and then now I mean like I deal with the documents like P&D documents or
Contract
document with images where our customers I sit down with them and they can kind of pick and choose what enhancements they want. So I think it's pretty pertinent for your salespeople to be just as familiar with the budget and documents tabs as. But that's as far as I go.
Yeah. So yeah, and to expand on that a little bit, like from a sales point of view, if you're having your salesperson do all the estimates and whatnot, yeah, they're going to be involved in job tread for sure. If that's where you're doing your estimates, wherever. But really, Bo's involvement with job tread now, after we restructured with Carlos, is definitely more on the sales side of like document creating, selections creating, proposals, contracts, stuff like that. So I mean, he's entering stuff into job tread, but yeah, he's not affecting like the background pricing
The
or
job
whatever.
starts with me and JobTread, and we have it actually automated where once the opportunity in our CRM on deck is moved into our estimating stage, or like after I've like in-home consult, that in-home consult stage will automatically create a new job into JobTread for me, so I don't have to enter all that information, which is super convenient. And then when I'm on the or at the consult and I'm taking pictures, I can automatically upload them to that JobTread file.
So I don't know if one thing he's also doing in JobTread. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Company Cam, where you like take photos at job sites. I don't know if you guys know this, JobTread can pretty much do everything that Company Cam, and you're already paying for JobTread. So we started using JobTread for those pictures, videos, notes, other things like that, just in a daily log format, so that it's already there, so that when you know, if Bo wants to take maybe wider shots or videos, he'll do it like on his phone and then upload it to JobTread, but it still works the same way. And then that way, Carlos, as the estimator, can just go to the JobTread, you know, job, and all of everything's already there. He doesn't have to go to Bo to get those things. So making those things seamless about like how a salesman interacts with different parts of your company is really, really critical to make sure that there aren't like bottlenecks and like, hey, why haven't we gotten the Johnson estimate out? Because, well, you know, photos weren't uploaded or something.
And to make it even more transparent and easier for my transition to Carlos as he's estimating, when I'm providing an estimate to the customer, I like things priced out enhancement wise. So this is what the deck would be, and then if we want to add on the fire table or the pergola and retractable screens, and it's all priced out separately for me, so I can easily relay that to the customer and they can kind of pick and choose.
Yeah. Exactly. Any other questions? Questions, comments, concerns? No? All right, cool.
All right, you're not going anywhere yet. So
Oh, okay.
Good job. Good job. Proud of you.
Thanks. That was an awkward hug.
So I don't know who else got some great notes there, but a couple things that I wanna highlight, but also.
You want me to stay up here?
Huh?
You want to stay up here?
Yeah, stay there.
Okay.
Honor Josh for a minute, right? Because like the problems he was trying to solve 2 years ago when we first had that first conversation were like, how do I pay the lumberyard the 50 grand that I owe them, and buy the supplies for the next job that I need to buy, but I spent the deposit for that customer. Like that was the conversation the first call Josh and I had, right? Now he calls me up and he's like, I hired a project manager, or I raised up a project manager. I've got a project coordinator. I've got a full-time administrative assistant. I hired a salesperson. We've got a showroom. And now the call that I get from him is like, I still got to manage all these people now. Like and I'm like, well, yeah, you're welcome. That problem that you have, right? Like that's literally just a two-year time frame and a glimpse into it. Now, is it beautiful and like everything's super great? No, we have plenty of therapy sessions. If there's nothing else you can take away from this, like that's something Josh does really well, is like calls often to like, hey, Bo's challenging me on some shit. How do I deal with that? Right? Like, and then Bo gets on. He's like, yeah, why can't I sell the white vinyl rail or the white composite rail that's in the brochure? Right? Like, so like they're constantly running into new obstacles. How do we go over, under, through? From Coach JC this morning, like how do we get through that?
But let me piggyback off of something, because the obstacles that I don't want you to get scared and be like, great, now I just more obstacles to deal with. Those obstacles are the fun ones, because they're the building block obstacles. They're the ones where when you solve them, you're not just on to the next one. I've built it now. Okay, I'm adding to the process.
You've got people on your team that want to grow. They want to be in a growth environment, right? That's what they signed up for. So they're bringing problems, but they're also part of the solution. Which is huge. Why it's so important to not miss that foundational piece. When we go through like core values and purpose and like all those things, they matter, because if you don't get clear about it, you're just going to throw a bunch of people together that you feel like have the right skills, but like they're not bought into where we're going. They're not going to help you get there, right? You help that, they help you get there. They get to where they want to go. So I love that. As far as some other just key stuff, and Bo said this, like, and I shared this a couple times, maybe not. I'm going to share it again, but like the purpose of like book a meeting from a meeting, right? Mm-hmm. Like Bo sounds like he's doing that fantastic. Like just have that be part of your vocabulary with your team. Like book a meeting from a meeting. That was one of my notes that I took here. How many people feel like they need more leads? Need more leads, right? I hear
just
that all
wait.
the time, and that may very well be true. But what if you sold the $76,000 customer, $167,000 job. Would you need more leads? Maybe still, right? But I guess the point I'm getting at there is like, try to sell people more stuff. When you spend a lot of money to get those ideal clients, you're really clear about the ideal client. You're spending the money to get the ideal client. When you have a person that their only job is to sell, right? How much more time can they spend nurturing that customer once they find them, once they got the fish on, right? He's got 8 planning and design fees right now. Now we want to capitalize and take that average from 69,000 to 167,000, right? So that's another thing that I took away was like, yes, we may very well need more leads, but how about if you just had a dedicated right? Grant, what are we going to do coming out of this? Are we hiring a salesperson? Right? Like that's the truth of a lot of us are. We meet with people. We don't have the time to always get back to them, and so if they're not actively like ready to buy from us right now, we just move on to the next person. And so that's a common issue that we deal with. So because owners are too busy, they miss opportunities. And like Josh said in the beginning, one of the things that he needed was more cash flow, right? Well, you feel like you don't have the time, energy, and money to hire a salesperson. The salesperson should pay for themselves. And they're going to give you the cash flow that you need to invest in other areas and put your time into building the team.
Yeah.
So that was another thing.
And one thing, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, but like, how many of you are like sitting here like, okay, next thing I'm gonna do is I'm hiring a salesperson. Like what I will say is, make sure you don't have to have all your shit together. You just have to have some of your shit. Is like having people there to help the salesperson get over the finish line, I think is more crucial than just having the salesperson. So having that team that they can come back to and say like, hey, a client wants this. How do we even do that? And that not being only you, right? So Bo has regular, meetings with Carlos and Andy about like, okay, how we can actually get this done, or am I calling this client saying, hey, it's not possible, or something like that. So I just wanted to kind of throw that in there as like, a salesperson, obviously that's what we're talking about, hiring a salesperson, but you do have to have that like support system for them as far as like other people and whatnot, or else you'll just be back in that same position selling with them.
Yeah,
and whatnot.
And today's all about strategy, right? Josh didn't just say, hey, it's time to hire. Like, we were strategic about it. It was based on a quarterly like this or a therapy session that we had. It's like, hey, this is the right thing. Like, that's the right time.
Yeah.
Because the reality is, like, sales is the oxygen of the company, right? Like, cash obviously is that, but like sales. So that's almost one of the last things that the owner's probably going to relinquish, or at least you might dabble with it and you're selling while someone else is selling. But yeah, it's a strategy.
And I remember I texted you, I said, hey, when do I hire, like I've got a project manager, I got a project coordinator, what's my next, I got an admin, what's my next hire? And you said, well, how many consults are you going on a week? And I let you know, and you're like, can you do any more than you're doing right now? And I was like, no, I can't even do those. You go, good, go hire a salesman. Like there is, you'll notice the time when it's right to hire a salesperson. Yeah.
Beautiful. All right. Anything else? Anybody have any? We did a lot of questions. I'd love to get some takeaways or feedback about what those were my notes. Anybody got anything you want to share inside what they took down from that? Go ahead, Kyle.
Just something I took away was like, some of the things you're saying, oh, I should have had that session together. But you wouldn't have built it out yet if you hadn't gone through the process.
That's the thing is I didn't know what I didn't know. And Bo has taught me more than I could have learned if I had to do it all myself. It's the same thing as like joining the academy, bringing on a salesman who has experience, and you've done your homework and made at least the company attractive to that person, will allow you to save a tremendous amount of time because you don't have to go through all those problems and learn how to sell, this, that, or the other. So.
Yeah. One last quote that I forgot to mention was you do not rise to the level of your goals, but you fall to the level of your systems, which I think is huge because without having the team and process that we started with and then redefining that, it's putting us on a trajectory to have a kick-ass 2025.
Yeah. Especially with Bo being there and me seeing what we're doing, on our boards and whatnot, it really maps as a business owner. It maps my 2025. Okay. For instance, my rock this quarter is going to be process library. Bo and I are constantly talking about, okay, let's have a process for that. Great. We have a process. Where is the process? How do we find the process? We wrote it down on a napkin. Now so that's like having that team and having a salesperson really makes it so that you can focus. you know what you need to do next. So I remember I walked into Allison's office one day and I was like, I feel really bad saying this. I don't know what to do with myself right now. I'm a little bored. And she was like, first of all, fuck you. Second of all, she was like, okay, well, I know Bo and you just talked about a whole bunch of things that, that could have gone better on such and such. She was like, go make them better. And I was like, oh, now I know what I'm supposed to do.
Right.
So yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And again, like Josh said this earlier, and I'm okay with that. I don't take offense to it. Like he took the sales playbook that I put together, threw that out the window. He did the same thing with our job tread catalog, right? Like just take what we're offering and shape it into whatever works for you guys, right? Like I shared that before. Like swipe it, shape it, and then ship it.
Mm-hmm.
So I just at least want to give you a guideline of what's worked for us. Now you know what's worked for Josh, and you can leverage some of that. So leverage the power of the room, so to speak. So
yeah.
Anybody else? No. And I know we already have. Some of you have already actively have salespeople, so fantastic. But like, if you're going to continue to grow and scale, you're gonna have to hire more. So how do you actually create a system that you can do that?
Mm-hmm.
Some of the tools that Josh, like with the Chat GPT stuff, the Plot stuff, like all of that stuff is super valuable to make it easier the next time that you do it.
Yeah.
Right?
And one thing that I do with each of my people is I make sure to let them know what I expected, not only what I expected them now, but what I expected them in the future and where I see them going. So I see Carlos being operations manager eventually. So it made sense to move him into his current position because as operations manager, you need to know basically every facet of production. And now he's going to become the master of design renderings and whatnot. But especially with wizard. But especially with salespeople, like if you're bringing on your first one, like I mentioned in the talk, like making it clear to them that you're not hiring for now, you're actually hiring for 5 years from now. And then one thing that Bo and I do specifically, every time we are creating one of those processes or every time we are talking about how we would do something in the future, we're doing it from the lens of here's how we would then train somebody on it and how we would do it with a sales team rather than just a sales individual. So Bo and I are very clear that he will not, I hope he's always selling and whatnot, but he will eventually be leading a team. So let's do the groundwork now, because what's your foot? Like do it now so it's easier later? I don't remember.
The easier to do the better to do the step before, the easier the next step.
Exactly, right, yeah.
And Josh didn't spend a ton of time on this, but like the hiring process is super important, right? The ad you put out there, he did that first initial 15-minute call, like, hey, is this a person that I could see like having coffee with sometime, before he has them come in and talks about the real job and goes through that. So has the team actually interview them? Like there's a process to hiring somebody that you guys all have access to, and there's people in here that have done this really well. Grant's been doing this. Zach, who's brand new, has been doing this. Like he's been hiring. He's constantly calling me up about, hey, where's the offer letter for this? How do I skills test this guy? Things like that. So the hiring process is just as important. So, but which Josh touched on, but if you didn't have your ears tuned into that, you might have missed some of that. So. But all right, beautiful. Well, I appreciate it, Josh.
Thanks.
We're gonna take 15 minutes, guys. So we're back here at